Hey, this is Jeff Tomlinson, your Northern Utah real estate expert. I wanted to say thank you for joining me on this video, and I hope you guys learn a lot of cool stuff. This information I'm going to provide to you is about new construction opportunities. They're great, they're wonderful, and everybody likes to get a new home. But there's some caveats and things that you should really consider before starting that venture or getting involved with a contractor or a builder. And a lot of people aren't familiar with this, and that's why I've made this video, is to help you get to become more familiar with some issues that you might face and hopefully can avoid. So with that in mind, I just want you to spend a few minutes here learning something. If you got any questions after that, get with me. I'd love to answer them out. But first off, here's one quick rule I always try to tell my buyers, and that is building or buying a new home is exciting, but don't let that excitement get in your way of good judgment, okay? One thing when you do get started on this process, as a general rule, try to educate yourself, okay? Do your homework. Learn what questions that you might want to ask before getting started. Also, reading reviews is a good thing if they have them, and ask for recommendations if you can find those as well. But then after all that, you decide to meet with the builder, you're going to have your first sit-down meeting. Now you're going to be either meeting with the builder themselves or possibly their agent. But one of the questions they're going to be asking you is, are you currently working with a real estate agent? Really think about that question before you answer it, because it can make a huge difference in the type of experience you could be having moving forward. And here's why we're going to be talking about that. There are three basic types of representations or positions a buyer can take. The first one is unrepresented, which means that that buyer is not working with an agent. They're there by their own selves, and they're just going to go there as a lay person and go from that point. The next type is a represented buyer. That's where they've actually hired or agreed to work with a real estate agent to help them through this whole process, and because they're counting on their expertise to get them through A to Z and have it be a good experience. And then there's the last one, which is limited agency. We'll go into more explanation about that here a little bit later, but those are the three types. And you should really consider that before starting, because if something were to happen, you might not have as much resources or challenges to deal with without having some good counsel, okay? The builders know how important it is to have a professional on their side, and they usually hire real estate agents to represent them in these types of transactions, because they know that an expert is something good to have on their side. Because I want you guys to ask yourself how familiar you are with a real estate purchase contract. Do you know what the legal jargon and what it means? Are you familiar with timelines and deadlines and how important it is to follow those? What about clauses or conditions? Do you understand the definitions and what you have to do to perform, or the builder needs to do to perform? If you decide to be unrepresented at this situation, then you are going to be on your own, or you're going to fall to a limited agency condition because you haven't brought an agent with you. Now, limited agency is not the same as being represented by an agent, and here's why. The Utah Association of Realtors defines limited agency as a limited agent has fiduciary duties to both seller and buyer. However, those duties are limited because the agent cannot provide both parties undivided loyalty and confidentiality and full disclosure of all information known to the agent. For this reason, a limited agent must remain neutral in the representation of a seller and buyer, and may not disclose to either party information like to weaken the bargaining position of the other. You understand that? So there's no 100% either way of protection. It's kind of a neutral ground. So you're compromising your position in this situation. The builder's agent also, remember, is working for the builder. So who do you think that they're going to be more committed to in this transaction? It's their livelihood. I guarantee you they're going to put more emphasis towards the builder than you as a buyer, and that should concern you, okay? The next is the purchase contracts that can be used. There are basically two types. One, at least in the state of Utah, and most states have the same thing, is a Utah's real estate purchase contract. And this contract, right here, I have an example of it for you, is 6 pages long. And it's written by attorneys to help buyers protect themselves when purchasing home, because there's a lot of issues that they have to consider. And the document is written really to protect those buyers' interests, because they are taking the biggest gamble in the situation, a lot of unknowns and uncertainties. Therefore, they should have those protections on their side. And the first, we call them walkaways, is the due diligence period. What does that mean? It means that if you're a buyer and you've gone through and you looked into the home and trying to find out more information about it, you're doing kind of like an inspection or research into that home. And during that period, you as a buyer have a right to know more about it. And as you learn about that, there might be some issues that come up. And those issues could be either small or very significant. And if they're of most importance to you as the buyer, then you should address them with the seller. And at that point, both parties need to work out what they're going to do. If the seller decides that he doesn't want to do anything, you as the buyer have a choice. You can say, I'm okay with that, or that's not good enough for me, and I'm out of here. And you can walk away. And you can do so. Every one of these clauses that we're talking about, you can walk away from the purchase without losing any money, which I think is pretty important. The next one is the appraisal condition. So when you're buying a home, obviously the lender is going to send somebody out to the site to check out the home, to make sure that home is really worth what they have agreed to, both parties. And if it's not, then once again, there's another condition of which the buyer and seller need to come to a meeting of the minds. And if they can, great, they can move forward. If not, then at that point, once again, the buyer can walk away. The next one is their financing deadline. So when the buyer goes out to get their loan, they obviously take that to their lender and they can start processing. Well, if the buyer looks at the loan and they're not happy about it, they can simply say, I don't like the terms and conditions of this, and I'm not going to move forward. And once again, they can walk away. All these conditions are great. They should exist because it protects you and us as consumers in this situation. However, let's look at the contractor's contract, okay? And they're nothing alike. The contractor's contract is totally written in favor of the builder. And what they do is that they hire an attorney to draft a contract. And I've got a contract right here. It's with a builder. And this baby is 60 pages long. Do you think something that's 60 pages long and that doesn't have clauses to protect that contractor? Well, they do. And none of it's in there for the buyer. So, given that situation and that the attorneys have drafted for that builder because they paid them, it's all slanted to the favor of the builder. Usually these contracts don't have any free or get out of clauses. Oftentimes the builders are going to retain some of the earnest money, or other fees or issues might be associated with walking away. So you need to be very careful before you cancel that. And you should be savvy to that, because if you're not sure, then you might want to rethink that. Honestly, ask yourself how savvy or familiar you are with law and litigation. It's my experience that most people are not familiar with these legal documents. So why would you blindly trust that your protection are contained within this contract, especially the builder ones? Because these contracts are not equal, okay? Another common misunderstanding is that when people are looking for homes, sometimes they're going with agents, sometimes not. And I've known many stories where an individual meets with the builder thinking that if I don't bring an agent with me, then possibly the builder's going to give me a discount because I don't have an agent. Well, that's not true. The fact of the matter is, I've been in this business for 17 years, and I know for a fact that almost every single builder out there has funds set aside on each home that if a buyer does bring an agent with them, that they're going to be able to pay that agent for their services. So why, as a buyer, would you not want to hire a professional on your side? Certainly the contractor has, and you should too as well. That's just kind of, I would say, common sense. But here's some other things I want you to consider. Before you sign anything with a contractor, you should do this. Ask the builder, does my earnest money become non-refundable after signing this contract? Can the builder cancel this purchase agreement at any time and for any reason? The reason that question is important, because I know of buyers who are worked and have worked with builders that were under contract, and months later the contractor canceled the purchase agreement and put the home back on the market for $100,000 more and resold it. The buyer couldn't do anything with it. Why? Because they didn't understand the contract that they had signed with the builder. So they're out. Next question, can I cancel the purchase contract at any time for any reason? From the buyer standpoint, what happens if the builder doesn't complete the home on time? What's the consequences for that? Are there additional fees or costs for going over the schedule? There has to be. It's a business. So you need to find out what they are. And finally, what happens if somebody physically happens to the home that you as a buyer don't like? Say something's installed wrong or not completed or damaged or whatever the case may be. Is the builder going to work with you to fix that issue? Because you shouldn't feel trapped in that. They should honor or give to you a home that you're completely satisfied with. Okay? The reason I bring up all these things is because I've experienced these things over the years. My own personal experience is that when I was building, my contractor staked the house out on the lot wrong. I had to fix it. He also installed the foundation wrong. Had to fix that. The framers didn't put the floor joists in right. We had to come to a different design to accommodate that issue. The deck was not finished or done at all, and the contractor said they were going to do that. My builder lied to me about going over the building cost for lumber by $10,000. The sprayer that I hired to come in and paint for me on lacquer, he screwed up. I had to take care of that issue. And then finally the cabinet guy come back and cost me an additional $5,000 because he wasn't going to do the job. Not only that, I know many, many stories. My own daughter was building and her contractor screwed up on the stucco and put the wrong color on, okay? And I know of other people that have had contractors put MDF, which is a compressed cardboard material, on the exterior of the home, which when it gets wet, it swells. They didn't seal the countertops, and so they got stains on that. And they didn't complete the wiring. Not all the lights were installed. I mean, these are just some of the issues that can happen. Now, this video is not intended to beat up on builders. There's good builders out there. I know them, and I work with them, and I try to stay with them and not the ones that may be a little bit shady. So we don't want to give the impression that builders bad. However, problems do happen, even with the good guys. And so if a problem does happen for you here in Utah, I'm going to give you some resources that the state of Utah has that if you're having issues, that you can contact and get with them. And you can also maybe contact us for some advice, because I'd be glad to give you that information. What's interesting too is two local television channels, Fox and KSL, both have stories related to contracting issues and the things that they faced when people had brought them to their attention. I'm going to provide the links for those as well, so you can go out and check out a little bit more. Once we talked about, again, is educate yourself, okay? And so that's my job here for you, always, is to educate people that I'm considered, I would think, an expert, and you're trying to learn how to become an expert. So consider me as a resource, and I'd love to show you all these things, plus help you in any kind of real estate transaction you might be considering. So once again, this is Jeff with eXp, and get to my channels, subscribe, and stay in tune for this video and other ones I'll keep doing to try to help you as a consumer. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on my next video.